House Tyrell is one of the great houses of Westeros. They rule over the Reach, which is the southern western area of Westeros, and they're a rather strong house. They're the second wealthiest house, only surpassed by the Lannisters, and they also have one of, if not the strongest armies, due to the fact that so many people follow them, and because the area they hold has such a big population that if they were to lead an army just in the area they own, they would have so many people, and if they got more allies, they would be pretty much unstoppable. Their navy surpasses the royal fleet in many ways. Their bannermen are the Redwynes, Lord of the Shield Islands, and they again give them lots of power if they were to ever hold a battle or try and defend their reach. But it's not war that this house is known for, because their motto is growing strong, and that kind of echoes a lot of things about the house, because they pretty much started from nothing and rose to power and eventually became a really big kind of ruling house of Westeros. The sigil that House Tyrell have, the rose, is actually a good representation of the house itself. You see, a rose, when you look at it from like far, it looks beautiful, but when you get closer, it has thorns, and that's supposed to be, I think that's a deliberate thing, because House Tyrell are equal measure Stark and Lannister in kind of ways. I mean, they have the cunning of the Lannisters. They're in like intrigue in politics. They can take you down, maybe even swifter than the Lannisters could, but they also try to do the just thing when the just thing can be done. So they have a mix of Stark and Lannister kind of outlooks on life, and together that is a potent mix, and that's what makes House Tyrell such a powerful house. House Tyrell are probably the most powerful house in my opinion, because they like to rise through the ranks and can rise through the ranks, which is another thing, a motto. Another thing that makes them so strong is that they don't have any internal rivalries. You see, House Baratheon has Renly, Stannis, and Robert when he was alive, fighting each other. House Lannister has Cersei, Jaime, and Tyrion, and also maybe Joffrey and Tywin fighting each other. Most, if not all houses, have people inside the house itself fighting each other for power. But House Tyrell is one of, if not the only house, which is comfortable the way they are, and they all help each other to rise to the top, and this is why they can rise to the top, because there's such peace and love in their house. Another thing that makes House Tyrell similar to the Lannisters is that they will side with the person who's most likely to win, although they are more subtle than the Lannisters in the way they carry out the thing, self-defenders of the march. Tyrells call themselves defenders of the marches, and they are pretty much the Wardens of the South, much like the Lannisters are Wardens of the West, and the Starks are Wardens of the North. The Tyrells are Wardens of the South, and their castle Highgarden is well known for how old it is, but is also known for chivalry. The Tyrells, through their female line, trace their descent to Garth Greenhand, who was a legendary person in the, you guessed it, Age of Heroes. He was the first member of the First Men to rule the Reach, and they say he wore a crown made out of vines, and that is probably one of the reasons why House Tyrell's sigil is in fact the rose, and the motto is growing strong. They have a kind of an almost fixation with nature, like not so much in a direct way, but in the way that the sigil's designed, and a lot of the stuff that they do in aesthetics and stuff is based around nature. I'm not sure if that's an intentional thing, but it's something that happens. Garth had many descendants. It's said that the Tyrells and the Florents both descend from him, and many of the noble houses in the Reach actually descend from his line, so he got around in his time. For a long time, the Tyrells were kind of second in command to House Gardner. Now, you've probably never heard of House Gardner, and that's because it died out a long time ago when Aegon took over, and that's when Lauren the Rock, who was a Lannister, so it'd be like a Gardner-Lannister alliance, well, they decided to kind of team up and try and fight the incoming invader, who was Aegon the Conqueror. They were defeated, and the whole house died. The Lannisters managed to get away, as they would, but House Gardner was gone, and the Tyrells kind of took their power after that. Then Aegon kind of found out where they came from. They came from the Reach, and Harlan Tyrell was his steward, and Harlan actually gave up the Reach to Aegon pretty quickly. If he could kill a house, he could kill a man, and they named him Lord of the Reach. When Daeron I invaded Dorne, the Tyrells actually helped him. They went through Prince's Pass and kind of invaded through that part, so there was like two people attacking, so they'd have to spread the forces out. Obviously, spread forces are better than solidified kind of small forces, as you probably know, and they won that battle. And because of that, the Targaryens began to trust them, and they pronounced the Tyrells governors of Dorne. But the Dornish people didn't like them back. You see, Lord Tyrell, at the time, this is a different lord to Lord Mace Tyrell, but Lord Tyrell loved Dornish women, and how he would do it is he'd pull a rope to get them through. And he did it one night, and scorpions came down instead of women, and he was killed by scorpions. It's a bit of a weird death. It's even more weird than wrestling for bears. House moment. But it's how he died. His death sparked new revolts and kind of fighting in the streets, and the whole conquest was undone in a mere fortnight. During Robert's rebellion, the House Tyrell stayed true to Aegon the Conqueror and stayed by his side, even when it was obvious that he can lose. They won Battle of Ashford against Robert, and that was the only part of the war that Robert lost, so that was kind of a big thing for them to win against Robert, and again, that was one thing that made the Targaryens trust them in a big way. But it did cost them Sir Quentin Tyrell's life, so it wasn't a total victory. They lost a few forces as well. Mace Tyrell likes to take credit for this victory, but it was in fact Randyll Tarly who was the main person who kind of made Robert go away and managed to defeat him. So Randyll Tarly deserves all the honour, but as you know, Tarly's never get any honour. Mace Tyrell went to besiege Robert's brother Stannis, but when he found out the Targaryen forces were nearly killed, he decided to bend the knee and say that Stannis was the true king. Robert Baratheon forgave them and accepted them as sworn vassals. By the old gods in the new. You're bloody patient, aren't you? You made it to the end of the video, congratulations. Thanks for watching, hopefully you enjoyed Later on Mortell. If you have any requests that you want to see, then just feel free to put it in the comments. I'll try and get as many done as I can. So whether you're fealty lies with the lions, the stag, or even the direwolf, something there for everyone. I've been Scipio, this has been Lightlore. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. See you next time. God bless you.